All right, Philip, it's draft time. The draft is this Thursday. Uh, we're going to do we this is the Eagles mock draft by our boy Jimmy Kemsky. We'll do 4 rounds. I'll read it. I don't really know anything much about college football. I'll read the
I haven't
peop-
been in. I haven't been in a loop either this year. So
well, that was your thing, though.
get old, man. Start having kids. You can't find time to do shit you like to do.
Okay, well, I'll just read what he think that's is going to happen and who they're going to draft, and you can give your input. Only 4 rounds. Okay, the first round, pick 24, trade with the Vikings. The Eagles select Mikael Williams, edge rusher from Georgia, 6'5", 260 pounds. He thinks that the Eagles is going to trade their pick to Minnesota.
Hmm.
The Eagles sent picks 32, 96, and 161 for pick 24, owned by the Vikings, who only have 4 picks entering the 2025 draft. Now, his review on Williams. Williams has outstanding power, quickness, and agility to go along with his great length at 6'5", 260,
What
with
school?
Georgia, with 34 and 3/8 inch arms. He's also versatile and has lined up all over the Georgia defensive line. So, like most first round Georgia defense prospects, Williams' sack numbers aren't overwhelming, 14 sacks in 3 seasons. But he also played through an ankle injury throughout the entire 2024 season. William plays disciplined team defense, and he's a force in the backfield against the run. That alone should earn him an immediate role in any defense. But he also has a lot of room to grow as a pass rusher as he continues to develop more of a rush repertoire. You don't know the Mikael Williams, how he plays or anything, right?
No. You should have told me we was gonna do this NFL thing, because then I could have did some research.
Okay. Now
But
we
I'll
go.
just say this: I think if we get a solid defensive lineman, a solid offensive lineman, and a safety, those are your key areas you need to build. Everything else we cool at.
Okay. Round two, pick 64, and I'm going to tear this name up something serious. Ariante Ezra, offensive tackle, Minnesota, 6'6", 331 pounds. Ursay was the Gophers' starting left tackle since 2022, with some sparse experience at right tackle prior to that. He's a gifted athlete for 330 plus pounds offensive lineman. And that's pretty much because they don't have much to say about an offensive lineman. You don't know the guy, right?
I like both picks though, because if you get one of the best defensive linemen and you get one of the best offensive linemen, that's pretty much what I just said our weaknesses is. So let's
Mhm.
do it.
So as Jimmy Kempsey said, he thinks that the Eagles is going to trade the third round pick to Minnesota. So we're skipping the third round and we're going to the fourth round. And at 134, the Eagles select Ty Robinson, interior defensive line, Nebraska, 6'5", 288 pounds. Robinson is a violent lineman who can play multiple spots along the interior. He's powerful with a great motor and the upside as a pass rusher. 7 sacks in 2024 and 10 batted passes over the last 2 seasons. He's also an exceptional athlete, which you would expect from a 228-pound interior defensive lineman. No, you don't know who that is, right?
No, but I don't sound like I want him either though.
Okay. So since I said 4 rounds and no Eagles for the pick for third round, I'll go to round five. Round five, pick 164. Mitchell Evans, tight end, Notre Dame, 6'5", 258 pounds. Because there's the rumor that Dallas Goedert is going to be traded. So I guess that's why they're talking about selecting a
But we
tight
keep
end.
doing the same shit over and over with this tight end position. How about you have a solid tight end, you stick with him? Because we
Mm,
gave up what was it, Ertz? He
yes.
wasn't washed up. He was busting our ass last year in the playoffs. We
Hmm.
gave up Ertz before it was too soon. Now we're giving up Goddard before it's too soon. We just got the boy Caracatera a couple drafts ago. So why you still keep drafting tight ends? Leave that shit alone.
Okay. Jimmy says Evans isn't athletically gifted as some of the other tight ends in the class, but he is a physical player and a good blocker.
Sound like a
He
wasted pick.
he isn't likely to put up great receiving numbers in the NFL, but he's a big target with big hands and the size to be a red zone target. He can be a solid meat and potatoes tight end one with a floor as a tight end two. So you pretty much getting a backup for who? Kater? If Dallas Goddard get traded, of course.
It seems like they is going to trade him because that's what they do to people and shit.
Mm-hmm.
But why fuck up what you got going on? They should have left our team intact. Everybody was signed. You didn't have to cut nobody or trade nobody.
Right.
Some of those big guys on the line you couldn't afford. I can understand that. But the safety, we could have kept the safety. He was a fucking game changer for us in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So even with Slay said he wanted to play his last year here. He not breaking the bank. We could have kept Slay for one more year.
All right, we're gonna go to Jackson Kruger on YouTube. Jackson Kruger Sports. This is his mock draft. What he thinks that's going to happen in the NFL, and this is the whole NFL draft, not the Eagle stuff. Here we go.
All right, back with another mock draft. This is going to be the official Jackson Kruger Sports, what I think will happen mock draft. Now, I already made a mock draft. That's kind of what I think will happen, and it was a lot of sort of fun things that I was going over. Wasn't taking it too seriously, but was still trying to make something that would work. Here, I am really making an effort to just do what I think has the best odds of happening. I think that's how I would phrase it, because you're never going to get perfect. But what has the best chance of happening? I do have a couple of takes that are against conventional wisdom, but yeah, let's just get into it. So for picks 1 through 7, there really is kind of a script, right? And people could go off script. That happens sometimes where we think it's going to go one way and then it goes very.
Now, is this Cam Ward really good or hyped?
He's good. I probably wouldn't draft him.
It sounds like it'd be a disaster for him to go to Tennessee.
Every quarterback that do go there, even your boy, just don't turn out right.
Right. See, the thing is, I just don't understand why they have these. They'll have these quarterbacks. They'll draft these quarterbacks, and they automatically got to start. Why can't you just sit on the bench and get
the
your
only
team
time
right?
they should start if you have the weapons around them. You need to have a line that can protect them. You need to have at least a number one receiver and a running back. If you got those there, or if you don't have the running back, you can have a tight end. But you definitely got to have a solid receiver, tight end, or running back, and an offensive line. If you don't have that, then let them sit. Don't put these young dudes out there ruin their momentum, their confidence, getting their ass kicked and hurt and all that type of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Different, but 1 through 7 is the script. Now, I will say the script does specify that number 2 and 3 can be flipped. Cam Ward feels like he's going first overall. Will Travis Hunter go second overall, or will Abdul Carter go second overall? I think the Browns will like Hunter more, and if they do, I still think the Giants just stick at number 3 and take Abdul Carter. I'm not doing trades in this mock
I thought that the Giants was going to get Shador.
draft. I think a trade is very much.
I think because he wasn't doing those traveling for the teams and stuff. What was it? The
Pro Day
combine or something he didn't do.
Yeah.
So that kind of I think may help him fall
on the table here. I do think a team could move up a lot of spots to try and get Abdul Carter, but ultimately I think the Giants would say, let's just have 3 good edge rushers and have them all play 700 snaps. That's okay. I do think the Patriots go Will Campbell at 4, who, again, is he worth the 4th overall pick? That's a debate people are having, but ultimately he's someone who can help out Drake May, and that's kind of what they need right now. Mason Graham at pick number 5 for the Jaguars. That feels like, him, Ashton Genty to the Raiders, and Armin Amembo to the Jets. Feels like just about everybody is predicting those 3 picks. They're 3 players who are worth those picks and also fill positions of need, so that just makes sense to me. Pick 8 is my first real deviation from what people are saying. I think a lot of people feel like the draft starts at 8. Where are the Panthers going to go? Nobody really knows because they have so many needs. It's just who they value more. A lot of people are going defense. I see a lot of Jalen Walker talk here. I just don't think they're going to do that. I think that they need a number 1 receiver, and you have Ted McMillan, who
they do. He's right.
If he falls to 8,
need a lot of shit.
Yeah, you're right at that also.
Worth that.
Look, if you can get the best wide receiver in the draft, and he's actually really good, then I'm gonna have to go with that if I'm Carolina.
that
Because, like you said, they need a whole new team.
pick. I think they've seen in their own division guys like Chris Olave, guys like Drake London, guys like Mike Evans from way back in the day. These are first round picks that have really blossomed to good players. The Panthers know they need a player like that. So that's what I think that they try and do with McMillan. So that's why I have him there. Number 9, I think I ultimately am going to buy into the Shadur Sanders to the Saints stuff. I was still on the fence right when it started to get announced because I was like, well, Carr's still under contract for 2 years. Like, that's a long time to expect a quarterback to sit. It happens, right? The Packers had a quarterback sit for longer than that. But ultimately, I think you're kind of eating
If he goes to New Orleans, then he shouldn't be playing right away.
into too much of the rookie deal if you're doing that. But also, like, you want to get the franchise moving forward, and this could be a way to potentially do it. With Carr getting injured now for the good part of next season, it might just be time to turn the corner and let Sanders play. I don't think they have to do it. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I can definitely see it. Number 10, Jalen Walker is again. I'm viewing him as an edge. He's the top edge on the board. I don't know if this is how Chicago would view this or who they would want if they go edge. I do think they ultimately do go edge here, though. So it's more about the position than the player. I do think Jody Barron goes 11 to the 49ers. That just makes sense to me. Good scheme fit, good player, position of need, everything checks out. Matthew Golden for the Cowboys, who I don't think this is something they have to do. I've seen a lot of people mock this, and it does seem like something they would be willing to do. I think he's a good player, so I wouldn't hate it if it happens. Certainly. Number 13, Will Johnson to the Dolphins. Again, they really need a corner now. Making sure that they keep him on, get him to help him, work get him on the roster. I think he could be a great player for them. Everyone's predicting Tyler Warren to the Colts. I am not clever. I am going with the same thing. For the Falcons, I am ultimately saying this is finally the year they go with an edge rusher. Mike Green is the guy who I think that they would value the most in that situation, so they get him at 15. At 16, you have Shamar Stewart, who it's tough. I was trying to figure out exactly what the Cardinals would do. I do think they would rather like Will Johnson fall to them or something like that, but here I just felt like, okay, I think that they wouldn't be scared off of Shamar Stewart's lack of, production. I think they would still be willing to draft him based on, just kind of how they tend to operate, or at least will operate at times. I do think that they like, they want a bigger body on the defensive line. He certainly is that. So it's tough. It's hard to figure out exactly where the Cardinals will go, exactly where Stewart will go. I don't love this pick, but it's ultimately what I decided to go with. Number 17, I decided Mikael Williams to the Bengals, which I think would be a good pick for them. I do think
So that's the pick that Jimmy Kempsey said the Eagles would take. I'm sorry, that the Eagles would take.
they can use an edge rusher. So like this is one that I think that ultimately it fills a need. He is kind of a on the consensus big board. He's a high up player there. So I do think that this is something I could see them doing. For the Seahawks, again, I didn't love this. I decided to just go with Calvin Banks Jr. and say, let's just see if they can make one of these guys work at guard. I think maybe you try and put Banks at guard, see if that works. They desperately need interior offensive line help. Banks is a natural tackle, but maybe you try something like this because they have Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross at the tackle position, but their interior stinks. So I don't know. It's weird, but that's what I went with there. Jahad Campbell to the Buccaneers. This feels like it's going to happen. Again, who knows once the draft is, once the draft actually happens. But this feels like one of those picks that I would bet on if I had to. This one you feel good about. Not to say it's guaranteed to happen, but there's a good chance it happens. They need a linebacker. He's a great linebacker. Not every team would want to draft an off-ball linebacker at this spot. Tampa Bay drafted an off-ball linebacker at pick 5 with Devin White. Granted, that didn't work out, but still, they're willing to do it, right? So I think it could definitely happen. We've also seen them draft like a tight end in the first round. They're willing to do that kind of thing. So I think it'll happen. And I think he's a great player. Worth the 19th overall pick. Amarian Hampton to 20. Yeah, this is something I didn't really think about right away, but the more and more of these mock draft reviews I do, I'm just like, I see these, I'm like, it just makes sense, right? Sean Payton values the running back position. People really do view Hampton as a potential game changer, and if he is a game changer, yes, they probably could.
Is he a game changer? This is the first time I heard this person's name.
I haven't watched it. I don't know. I don't know.
Use a receiver. but ultimately this is how Sean Payton wants to operate. He wants to run the ball and then run play action off of it. That's how he schemes things up. And I think that, in that Bills game, you could look at it and say, well, the receivers couldn't win one-on-ones. I think he might look at it and say, well, my running game wasn't good enough to consistently win and force the Bills to have to go out all out to defend a run, which is why my receivers couldn't win one-on-ones. So I could definitely see this happening. The Steelers, we have to talk about a bit. They are a team that, a lot of people are predicting quarterback. Well, for one thing, Shadur Sanders is off the board. I don't know if NFL teams view Jackson Dart as a first-round pick. I just don't. And I also think that the Steelers have that Aaron Rodgers thing. Is he going to, what's going to happen there remains to be seen. But ultimately,
Yeah, leave him alone.
Who gives a shit? He at the end of his career. Any team that need a quarterback should not be passing on Shador or Dort if you can get you a quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. Like the Giants, even if you're going to sit Shador on the bench, you need a franchise quarterback.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't pass on something like that.
Ultimately, I think Josh Simmons could be a fine tackle for them. They could use a tackle. They lost Dan Moore Jr. in the offseason. I think this is probably what ends up happening here. Colston Loveland's been getting mocked a lot to the Chargers. I don't think this is a guarantee. Like 19 Jahad Campbell to the Buccaneers, I'm like, that just makes sense. That's what they would want to do. I don't know if the Chargers are going all out to get a receiving tight end at pick 22. This doesn't fully fit the entire way that they're built, but I just think that he's a good enough receiving tight end that they'll say, you know what, let's just make this move. They could do something different. They for sure could, but that's where I'm going with. And then the Packers, who they were the toughest one to pick, I think. The Packers, I have no idea what they need to do because they honestly have a pretty complete roster right now. There isn't like a great need. I just want James Pierce Jr. I think that they could use an edge rusher. I know Lucas Van Ness is still there, but like you can have three players play snaps, and I think Pierce would be a great player for them. So that's kind of what I decided to go with. Then you have Malachi Starks, who I just think would fit well for the Vikings and would be a good player for them. That one, I don't think I have to talk about too much. That just kind of makes sense. Final 8 here. So I went with Gray Zabel, kind of the next offensive lineman off the board for the Texans. I do think that they would like to have an offensive lineman who could help them out. That makes sense. The Rams I really struggled with as well. They were another team that was tough because I'm like, I strongly considered Walter Nolan, but I was just like, because that's kind of how they operate, right? They tend to just try to draft best player available, but I just ultimately felt like I don't know. I think that it would be hard to get Nolan enough snaps to justify a first round pick on him. I decided to go with a bit of a reach and go with Trey Amos, who the reason why I went with Trey Amos instead of maybe some other corners that people think are higher, the way the Rams operate, they value production so much. Amos was great last year at Ole Miss. That's just kind of why I think that they would ultimately go in that direction and they could use a corner. It'd be a great pick. I think he would play well for them. The Ravens, I decided to go with Walter Nolan. Again, they're another team that will just draft a good player. He's a good player, and I think they'll have an easier time getting playing time because they don't have they still have good players on the defensive line, but it's not quite the Rams where it's like they even have snaps to play here. At 28, with the Lions, I went with Donovan Ezeraku, who is a player that, again, I think they could use an edge rusher. I think he's worth a late first-round pick. So, that's kind of where he's projected to go. All that just kind of makes sense to me. 29 for the Commanders, Nick Emanuele, who the question I have with the Commanders is how much do they feel like they need to improve the secondary? For me, I'm like, a lot. That's a big issue, but I don't know if they fully view it that way. However, ultimately, there isn't like a great edge rusher still on the boards, so maybe they could go receiver, but I think they would still go with Nick Emanuele here, but who knows how it'll work exactly. For the Bills, I think that they would like to go secondary, but again, some of the secondary players are off the board. There still are some good players that they could go with here, but aside just Kenneth Grant, they could use another guy in the interior. Again, he'll get snaps there. He'll be a good player for them, so just kind of, and I think this is something they value as well. So decided to go with him there, and I think he's just a good player. Tyler Booker for the Chiefs is what I decided to go with. Everyone says tackle for the Chiefs, but to me, left guard is a much bigger position of weakness right now. They did sign a player to play tackle. Left guard, they're going with a project tackle that they've now had to move to guard because he was just kind of a mess at tackle, largely due to technique. And now he's going to have to try and figure out the guard technique. Maybe it'll work out, but ultimately I wouldn't go into a season banking on that. Tyler Booker, is first round talent on the consensus big board. He's at 31. Let's just do that. Finally, and he's a good pass blocking guard as well, which is obviously what they value. 32. So this is going to get some eyebrows raised. But for one thing, I
Yes,
don't,
he's retarded.
Yeah, because why the hell would the Eagles draft a wide receiver, a guy who's not even going to really play?
Right. We don't got enough balls to give Devontae as many as he needs. And then our
Exactly.
third receiver is solid if we kept him. I'm not sure if we kept him or not.
well,
Dotson.
Yeah, I know who he's talking about. I don't think he went anywhere, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
people predicted like Walter Nolan or maybe even like a Derek Harmon could go here at pick 32. I don't view the Eagles defensive line as this massive, like, oh, they have massive, holes in the defensive line. Yes, they have lost some good players, but they were already loaded there. So while they do like to constantly have guys they can shift in and out, if the right guy's available, they'll take one. But I don't think they're going to reach on one. And quite frankly, they could use another receiver. They could use a number 3 receiver because usually
They could use a linebacker also. With N'Kobe Dean getting hurt and all that stuff.
Yeah, but the other guy
They could-
came in and played good. So you don't need a linebacker. You need a safety. You need an offensive lineman and you need a defensive lineman. That's what you need.
it's Goddard is the third option, but like what if someone gets hurt, or what if you just want to have 4 options? I think getting someone like a right receiver of this caliber here at pick 32, that's just worth it for me. So ultimately, yeah, I think that's what I would predict to happen. I'm sure a lot of this will be wrong. We'll see if one of my bold predictions ends up
Oh, you wrong on the Eagles.
being correct. I was trying to be not too crazy with this. So let me know in the comments below. Again, I feel like usually in these things, you tend to not pay attention to the ones you agree with and only pay attention to the ones you disagree with. So let me know your thoughts, positive or negative, on this mock draft. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.
All right, that was Jackson Kruger Sports on YouTube. That was his mock draft. All right, so you can reach the Judgementals. Oh, first of all, when y'all looking at this on YouTube, subscribe also because a lot of people looked at the last week's episode about the it's what was this the name of it? I don't even have it here. But last week's episode, a lot of people looked at it and you don't subscribe. A couple people will subscribe, but we needed more subscribers. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at PNL Judgementals, Instagram at _judgementals, and you can email us at pnljudgementals@gmail.com.
So we
Sorry.
got a lot of freeloaders checking us out and ain't subscribing.
Yes. Uh-huh. So all right, Phil.
All right. Peace.